and dried off. There's towels, paper towels in the bathrooms if needed. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Elizabeth Berard and I am the COR for the YouthPower Implementation IDIQ, the YouthPower Evidence and Evaluation IDIQ, and the YouthPower Learning Project. So we're really enthusiastic and excited to see you here this morning. So I want to do a quick survey first of all. I want you to think of one of the implementing partners that you work with in an international country or one of your government counterparts. And I want you to think of the term positive youth development. Raise your hand if you think that individual knew the term positive youth development 10 years ago. Okay. Raise your hand if you think that individual knew the term positive youth development 5 years ago. I see a few half hands. Okay, great. And what about this year? If you think back to last week, how many of you think that individual knew the term positive youth development? Okay. So informal survey, it looks like we're trending up, which is always good. Since the launch of YouthPower, we've come a long way in better understanding positive youth development in low and middle income countries. The recent Youth and Development Survey, Youth and Development Policy Assessment recognized that YouthPower has played an important part in promoting and socializing the term positive youth development and building the key understanding of concepts and terms around PYD. Since the launch of YouthPower, YouthPower has issued 13 task orders and has implemented work in more than 18 countries. So not too bad over the past 3.5 years of work. While YouthPower has been critical in promoting and socializing positive youth development globally, the credit can't stop there. Many of you in this room are IDIQ holders, while still others are partners that are vested in positive youth development and really have been carrying the torch strongly in terms of positive youth development in the countries where we're implementing. You have encouraged and continue to engage with USAID missions and with our local government counterparts as well as other donors and local partners implementing positive youth development. So thank you. So accolades aside, the Youth and Development Policy Assessment also found that we need to do more to share the guides and tools and terms and concepts developed by YouthPower and by many of you here in the room as part of our communities of practice. So looking ahead to 2019, I'm very excited. I see exciting prospects for positive youth development. More missions than ever are engaging in positive youth development programming, and they're interested in understanding the best practices or better practices in implementing good, solid, evidence-based, high-quality youth programs. This is our opportunity to share the resources and leverage the work we've previously done as we forge ahead in our continued pursuit for high-quality, evidence-based, cost-effective, and scalable positive youth development programs. Thanks very much and welcome everyone. Glad you're here. I'm going to introduce Mike McCabe next, our agency youth coordinator.
Good morning. Oh wow, we're asleep. Good morning.
Good morning.
Great to see everybody. Thanks Elizabeth, and thank you so much to Making Sense International and YouthPower Learning for organizing this. This is really, for me and I think for a lot of us at USAID, one of our favorite activities and events of the year because we get that opportunity to bring together that collective impact, that collective learning about what's really pushing forward our entire sector of youth development, but thinking about how it cuts across all development sectors. And that's why it's been so important. I want to start off with that recognition of the people who have worked so hard to make today possible and the progress that Elizabeth was just talking about. So first of all, a big thanks to the YouthPower Learning team. If you wouldn't mind standing up, Cassandra, Maria, all the other folks who are working on YouthPower Learning. I also want to thank the folks from USAID, Elizabeth, who's done an incredible job. Grace, if you're here, a lot of the YouthPower Steering Committee members, if you're here from USAID, please stand up. All hidden in the back there. There we go. And then to all the rest of you who have worked together on a common learning agenda so we could advance the evidence about what really matters when we're trying to respond to the imperative of young people around the world. Thank you so much, because that evidence and those examples from the projects that you're supporting really make a massive difference. The other thing that I love about this day is we do a pretty good job versus many other events I go to of having young people there. So if you are a young person, please stand up. Come on, if you are a young person, I know you're there. Stand up. Stand up. Now, you're saying, Mike, what do we mean by young people? I'm young. I'm 54. What's our definition? 10 to 29. But it's always great to see between, the adult and young changemaker partnership in YouthPower. I think that's part of what makes YouthPower so special. And when I came to USAID now just over 2 years ago, one of the first things we did is we took a look at our youth leadership programming. And we found that there were about 38 missions that were funding youth leadership programs for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of young people around the world. But one of the shocking things was we didn't stay in touch with young change makers. So we were building their capacity, building their motivation, but we weren't strengthening that network of different networks of young change makers, as well as staying in touch with them as USAID or as partners. So part of that led us to say, how can we respond to what young people kept asking for, which is kind of that youth leadership and networking 2.0 for young change makers. And that's where this past year has been great, because we've been able to work with YouthPower Learning and with many of you to think about how do we create that ongoing network that connects us to the young change maker voices. So we will be launching in this coming month Youth Lead. It'll launch in English and Spanish, and then it'll have the ability to flip into 30 different languages. And eventually we'll be adding French and Arabic as the standard languages, but any young change maker can look at this. This is a platform that YouthPower Learning has been working together with us and others on, and we have a network of 21 young Youth Advisory Council members who have been guiding us in what they say they most feel they need. There's a lot of things out there on the internet, but we spent a lot of time asking what's missing and how can we really help make that connection. So as you'll see here, there's a number of things that respond to that. The first thing is they want to know resources. Unfortunately, it's very hard for donors to get resource support to youth-led local solutions. And I'm really excited that Michelle Becker, our Senior Deputy Administrator for E3, is going to be talking about one of the ways we've been able to respond to that in just a minute. But this will be basically a way that we're able to connect young people to the resources, to connect them to innovative projects around the world where they'll be able to share their own organizations, and we'll also be able to connect them to mentors that are out there and some of the over 4,000 resources that are on YouthPower, but new resources that are specific just to young change makers. We hope you'll join us. Creative Associates, IREX, IYF, a lot of other organizations, Teach for All, have all joined as partners, and from USAID, a number of our bureaus have invested to make this a platform for and by young change makers. So we hope that you'll look at ways that you can join us. Now I have the pleasure of introducing Michelle Becker. Michelle, as I said, is our Senior Deputy Assistant Administrator for the Bureau of Economic Growth, Education, and Environment. And she's been a tremendous force since 2017 in USAID in bringing a vision to how we really empower women and bring a gender lens into our work and empowering young people. Prior to USAID, she worked at IRI as basically the Director of Global Initiatives, and also did a lot around citizen exchange and empowerment and leadership for young people and for women, including Generation Democracy, which was a tremendous initiative that is also one of the partners now on Youth Lead. So with that, I'd like to introduce Michelle, who will talk about the Young Women Transform Prize that we'll be announcing the winners of today. Welcome, Michelle.
Well, thank you, Mike, and I am so impressed that you got the E3 acronym right. My title is quite the acronym list. It's actually SDAA of E3, and I love watching people who don't work in the Bureau think for a minute of what the 3 E's are, so you passed. So well done. It is such a pleasure to be here today, and I want to welcome you all here. I'm just delighted to be here. As Mike has said, this is a topic that is really near and dear to my heart, and also to the administrator of USAID, Mark Green. As Mike mentioned, prior to coming to USAID, I actually worked at IRI under Administrator Green's leadership. And this was something, we are an international NGO, and this was something for years he's been talking about as a former congressman, as a former ambassador overseas, that we cannot ignore the youth population. If we're going to talk about development, we need to talk about youth. And I love that kind of opening statement, what is positive youth development? When we're talking about youth engagement, when we're talking about working with youth, what are we really talking about? And it is such a pleasure all these years later to see, such a large group of people who are coming together from various organizations, governments, the private sectors, really joining our efforts together to see how we can really meet our objectives and make success in this field. And as he further mentioned, I have a special place in my heart for women's empowerment and equality. And so when we're talking about young women, I feel like this is really where my passion lies. So we're talking about youth, we're talking about women, and it's just recognizing sort of the unleashed opportunities that really exist there. And so I think YouthPower is just really one of the most innovative, vibrant programs we have. We really give Mike so much credit for the great work he has done in really helping the agency and our mission think more strategically about how we're working with youth and about how this really is core to what our development goals are. And I know later on you're going to be able to talk about how this fits into our journey of self-reliance, of the vision the administrator has for our development assistance. And we see youth as just integral to that. So again, thanks to Nancy Taggart on my team, who is really the brains behind the Young Women Transform Prize. It's always really great when you get up and, talk about the prizes and actually give the announcements. But I would be remiss if I didn't actually give credit to my team and to Making Sense and all of those who are really working so diligently behind the scenes to make today a possibility. So thank you to you. So I'm going to tell you a few things you already know, but I just really want to make sure that we are really overscoring this point. We today are witnessing the largest youth population this world has ever seen. And as I mentioned earlier, that's something that we really need to focus on when we're talking about our development goals. We recognize youth have the capacity to develop solutions to the challenges that are facing them and their communities. But to do so, youth today need meaningful opportunities for engagement, for education, and for economic opportunities. And we need to make sure that they have the tools and opportunities to thrive and to succeed. But we also need to make sure that these opportunities are inclusive. At USAID, we believe that gender equality and women's empowerment isn't just part of development. It's not one of our sectors, but it really underpins all of our development work. Progress cannot be delivered in a vacuum. For society to thrive, women and girls must have access to education, to healthcare, to technology. They must have control over resources, land, and markets. And they must have equal rights and equal opportunities as breadwinners, as peace builders, and leaders in every sphere. However, we recognize these challenges are really great. Around the world today, nearly 98 million girls are not in school. In the developing world, 1 out of 7 girls is married before her 15th birthday. There are some child brides as young as 8 or 9 years old. Just think about that. And globally, only 37% of young women participate in the labor force compared to 54% of young men. When young women are excluded from economic opportunities, we see gender inequality reinforced, and we see that women are less able to invest in their own health, education, and safety, and specifically that of their children. However, when we invest in gender equality and women's empowerment, we are unlocking human potential on a transformational scale. And nowhere is this more evident than when it comes to women's economic empowerment. When we invest in women's economic empowerment, we see firsthand a multiplier effect. For every dollar a woman makes, she invests 90 cents back into her family. And this is having a multiplier effect on that community and on that country. I just returned from Papua New Guinea, where I headed the delegation to the Women in Economy Forum, and one of the conversations we had was around women's equal participation in the global economy, and the statistics were so staggering, and I want to use this today. If women participated equally in the global economy, it would add 28 trillion US dollars to global GDP by 2025. Just think of that, $28 trillion in 7 years. So this is why, but I do want to back up here and say when we're talking about women's empowerment, we have to recognize that if we're going to empower women, we need to start with children, we need to start with girls, and we need to focus on young women. And that is why USAID launched the Young Women Transform Prize. And I have the honor today, which I have the honor to announce on International Women's Day this year. This exciting competition empowers youth in developing countries to propose their own solutions that foster young women's economic empowerment. Awards range from $15,000 to $35,000, and they're for grassroots, youth-led, or youth-serving organizations in low or middle-income countries for projects up to 1 year. And as Mike mentioned earlier, we recognize the public sector cannot do this alone. And so we were delighted to have two private sector partners who are co-funding this initiative with USAID, the Volvo Group and Standard Chartered Bank. Both companies have deep commitments to improving education and economic empowerment for youth and women around the world, and we are so proud to partner with them on this initiative. Since March, when we made the announcement, we received 365 applications from every corner of the world. And today, I am honored to be able to announce the winners of this prize. These winners are youth-serving and youth-led organizations from Latin America, Africa, and Asia. They are intentionally small-scale grants. One of the goals of this prize and these grants was to support emerging groups with innovative activities in organizations which currently have limited USAID engagement. The idea was to invest in sustainability of models, to make sure this was locally led development, and also with an eye towards increasing our partnership base. The prizes today will support both new ideas as well as build upon or scale up successful projects. All winners target young women from marginalized communities, and we are proud that two target women with disabilities. Several of the winners today are also supporting other young women to become more active in their communities, building their agency and ability to create changes that affect young women's economic empowerment and career opportunities more broadly. You'll see behind me now some inspiring photos of the winners, and I want to take a moment to tell you about each of them. So first we have here the Asante Africa Foundation in Kenya and Tanzania. There, Asante Africa will assess and measure the transferable soft skills that prepare youth for work based on Asante's youth leadership, job readiness, and entrepreneurship programs that has already in these two countries reached more than 200,000 youth. Next, in South Africa, the Dream Factory Foundation will combine computer science, digital, business and job readiness skills training with actual job experience to allow underrepresented young women to tap into the digital sector. By ensuring young women are economically active and independent citizens, they also hope to lower their vulnerability to HIV. Next, in Peru, the Visionaria Network will reach more than 500 secondary school girls and equip them to be change makers through a curriculum that builds agency, critical thinking, and interpersonal skills, and by engaging them in sustainable development projects in their communities. In rural Kenya, the Mashinani Hub will provide 100 young women from farming communities with training on basic computer skills and financial literacy. In addition, Half of the young women will be trained in beekeeping and the other half in poultry farming in order to create their own business cooperatives to access the market directly at better prices. Also in Kenya, but now turning to the urban slum Kibera, the Kibera Community Empowerment Organization will train and mentor young mothers with disabilities to prepare them for self-employment and community leadership. Now, turning to Latin America, in the coastal regions of Colombia, we are supporting Biz Nation, which was founded by young women to provide other young women access to technology and entrepreneurship and ICT skills training to strengthen their employment opportunities and business linkages. And in western Uganda, the Budongo Women Bee Enterprises is an initiative of Safe Plan Uganda, a youth-founded and focused community-based organization that economically empowers young women through environmentally friendly cooperative bee farming. They have already installed beehives which produce at least 20 liters of honey a year. Please join me now in congratulating these winners around the world. So in closing, focusing on young people, focusing on youth, boys and girls, young men and young women is really a priority not only for administrators but for this administration as a whole. We recognize the challenges facing women's economic empowerment. We recognize the challenges facing positive youth development across the world, and we are so proud at USAID to be working and partnering with you and with our young leaders to successfully meet these challenges. Since we know that by empowering young women, by empowering youth, we are creating economic opportunities and stabilities for all, which will benefit all sectors of the population. I look forward today to be hearing more about the work that you are doing. I look forward to hearing more about the youth, some of the projects the young leaders here are doing, but especially in watching these prize winners this next year to see what they're able to accomplish. And I do hope that you will continue to follow their progress as well. We have information up on our website that you'll be able to access to watch their progress as we go. So in closing, let me thank you sincerely for all of your support of our programming, and thank you for being part of the solution to these challenges. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing this announcement about the young women.